I should never have snuck out that night. My best friend Jasper dared me to do it, and we made a $100 bet on who would chicken out. It was a dark and stormy night. The wind howled through the trees, shaking the leaves and sending chills down the spine of anyone who dared to venture outside. I grew up in Parkins, specifically Grove Road, my entire life, and up to that point I had never left my small town. Jasper and I had been friends since kindergarten. We grew like siblings and did everything together. Even when we started high school and Jasper became popular with the girls, we never grew apart. We were always looking for adventure. So when Jasper dared me to take a walk around the neighborhood on the one night of the year that everyone locked their doors in fear, how could I say no? We would be heroes at school if we could prove it. Well, we kinda dared each other. The deal was we would walk in opposite directions around the block until we got to the old abandoned house, where we would leave a sign that we had been there for the other to find the next day. The plan was to return to the old house the next day to see if we had both actually done it, and the loser gets to pay the winner $100. We had been saving for weeks to get the $100 for the wager, and it needed to be worth it as it was the most dangerous night of the year. We didn't know what happened to people who didn't stay home on that night, except that they were never seen again. But we did know that it had something to do with the ancient spirit or beast that was rumored to be set free to roam on that special night. Of course, I didn't believe in the spirits. Most young people, like us, thought it was nothing more than a legend, anyways. But it was whispered among the older folk that every year on the night, February 25, an ancient evil walked free, and anyone caught was fair game as a sacrifice to Satan ancient hunger. According to the stories, our ancestors once prayed to this beast for protection, and in return they would take their payment in blood on one night of the year. While most of the town had moved away from such lore, there were still a few families that believed that this ancient evil still collected its pound of flesh on February 25 each year. As I walked down the deserted street, I was brave at first as I chuckled softly to myself at the thought of the $100 bill I was going to collect from Jasper tomorrow. At first, the darkness and the shadows did not scare me as I traveled from street lamp to street lamp. There was some comfort in the sound of the night insects, the owls and the frogs. They had a calming effect on me. But the further I got from my house, the harder it became to shake the feeling that I was being watched, maybe even followed. Jasper, I called out. Quit playing! Come on, man! I got no response from Jasper. The wind whistled eerily and I zipped up my jacket against it before setting off again. I quickened my pace, but the eerie feeling only grew stronger. That's when I realized that the night had fallen dead silent. I had stopped hearing the crickets, and I could no longer hear the frogs. The air felt colder, like ice shards as it licked and scratched at my hands and face. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around, but there was nothing there, just the darkness of the night and the street lamps and silent houses in the distance. The trees seemed to shiver from the cold as I took in my surroundings. Just as I was about to continue on my way, I felt a cold claw-like hand scrape across my shoulder. I was sure the nails or claws pierced my flesh. I whirled around, but all I saw was a pair of glowing eyes, for a split second, staring back at me before the figure vanished. A chilling laugh echoed in my ears, and a wet, musty, thick, almost dog-like scent filled my lungs. I could almost taste the wet fur when I smelled it. The odor was so intense, it was almost like a really large dog, maybe even with a wound. Or a pack of dogs. I started to pull away. I could sense swift but shuffling movement in nearby bushes. I knew that I was not alone on this lonely street. So I turned on my heels and ran as fast as I could. After a few paces, I started to hear footsteps behind me. It didn't sound entirely like human footsteps. There was some scratching accompanying each footfall, almost like the feet had long nails, like a dog that needs a nail clipping. I ran with all my might as the sharp wind made tiny paper cuts on my cheeks. I was thankful for the slight head start, but I could tell that the creature was faster. It chased me through the streets, its footsteps getting closer and closer with each passing second. With every step I took, I could hear the growling, gurgling sounds behind me. I have never heard a dog, wolf, or bear sound like that. I could feel the rancid heat of its breath on my back, a seeping heat that smelled of death. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Just when I thought I was going to be caught, I spotted a dim light in the distance. I ran towards it, hoping it was a sign of safety. As I got closer, I realized that it was the street lamp just outside the old abandoned house Jasper and I were supposed to leave our mark at. I hesitated for a moment, but the creature was right behind me, so I had no choice but to go inside. The door creaked open and I rushed inside, slamming it shut. I leaned against the door, panting and trying to catch my breath. But as I looked around the dark and musty room, I realized that I might have just trapped myself, making it easier for whatever was out there trying to catch me. Panic flooded through my pores and washed me in a cold sweat. I heard the creature scratching at the door, and I knew that I was in for a long and terrifying night. I stood in the dark and musty room, trying to remember everything I ever heard about the beast, but my mind was drawing blanks. As I said, I never paid much attention to old wives' tales. But now my heart was pounding in my chest. I tried to think of a way to escape the creature that was outside. That was when I remembered that I had a flashlight in my pocket, and I quickly pulled it out and turned it on. The beam of light cut through the darkness, and I could see that I was in an old living room. There was a couch, a coffee table, and a fireplace, but there were also cobwebs and dust everywhere. I looked around for a weapon, but all I could find was a fireplace poker, so I picked it up and held it tightly, trying to steady my shaking hands. I could hear the creature scratching at the door, and I knew that it was only a matter of time before it broke through. I started to back away, moving towards the staircase that led to the upper floor. Halfway up the stairs, there was the sound of wood splintering, then bursting inwards as the door gave way and creature crashed into the house with me. I started to run up the stairs as quickly as I could. I could feel the creature's hot breath on my neck. I knew that I had to act fast. At the top of the stairs, I saw a door that looked like it led to a bedroom, so I ran towards it, hoping to find some kind of shelter. I burst into the room and slammed the door shut behind me, but not before something inhuman slipped inside too. As I turned around, I realized that I was not alone. There, standing in the corner of the room, was the creature. It was tall and lanky, looking like an emaciated dog-human hybrid, but rotting. I was surprised at how fast it was for how it looked. It looked like it should not have been able to move. It looked like some unholy corpse. It had glowing red eyes, dead pallid skin that clung to its skeleton. It had rotting fur in patches and a mouth full of sharp, discolored teeth. I screamed and backed away, but the beast lunged at me, its claws extended. I swung the fireplace poker at it, but it easily dodged the blow. Just when I thought I was going to be killed, I heard a loud crash from downstairs. The creature stopped and turned its head towards the sound. It snarled and growled, then disappeared down the stairs. I was left alone, trembling and scared. I didn't know what had just happened, but I knew that I had to get out of there. I ran to the window and pushed it open, then climbed outside, back into the stormy night. As I ran through the streets, I was convinced that I could still hear the creature's angry snarls behind me, over the sound of rain and wind in my ears. Although, that might have been my imagination. I can't say for sure. But I didn't stop to check. I ran until I reached the safety of my home and I locked the door behind me. The next day, I got the news that Jasper was missing. I never got to cash in on that $100 wager, and I never told anyone of the bet. 12 years later, Jasper was never found. But the police did find one of his sneakers in the old abandoned house. It was his favorite pair, the left foot of his Nike Air Force One with blue laces. When my parents saw the scar where the beast punctured my shoulder, they said nothing, but they were visibly horrified. I moved away from Parkins that year to live with an aunt, vowing never to return. and my parents went along with my decision, citing my trauma of never knowing what happened to my best friend to anyone who asked about my whereabouts. But this year, my mother fell ill and was unable to come to me, so I decided to put my childish fears behind me and go back to Parkins to see her. I never spoke of that horrible night again, but the memory of the creature's glowing red eyes will stay with me for the rest of my life. Yesterday was February 25 again, and I'm back in Grove Road, Parkins, to visit my parents. Last night was another dark and stormy night, as I shuttered myself in my old childhood bedroom. As the storm raged, the old scar on my shoulder ached and throbbed all through the night. It was almost as if the creature was attacking me all over again. I started to have flashes of myself as the beast running through the night, growling, hungry for human flesh. I felt ravenous as my long, patchy fur clung to my cold, rotting skin. There was a girl and a boy, two teenagers, fooling around in their car. There was a lot of blood, screaming. I tasted their flesh and I enjoyed it. I can still feel their hot blood in my mouth and flowing down my face. These images right now are still flashing through my mind. I can't tell if it was a dream. Did I really go out there last night? Was I that beast? No, that's ridiculous. This morning, February 26, I woke up in a barn 3 miles away from my parents' house. I was bloody. There were a few patches of fur mixed with blood on the ground around me. The scar on my shoulder felt raw with ache, but the pain felt like it was slowly fading, unlike the excruciating feeling from last night. Confused, I ran back home before the sun rose completely and cleaned myself up before my parents woke up. I found Jasper's other shoe on our doorstep. The blue laces were faded and the shoes were deteriorating with age. But the strangest thing is that there was a rolled up $100 bill inside.